What's up, everybody? So, Ron Sneller, this is Brandon Gentili. We are here today talking about financial freedom is freedom. So we don't really have a script or anything. We're just kind of dish on all the corruption in the government and the corrupt financial system, and just talk. And I got one of these phones like close to me, so I can actually take questions as they come in or respond to comments. So where do you want to start, bro? Let's start first of all with some Johnny Walker Blue.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, my good sir. You're the man.
Cheers to you both. We had the podcast notes actually in that Excel doc, but it's all buried in all of our platforms right now. So, but some of the things were,
we'll get it out.
Obviously, financial freedom. What does Bitcoin actually do? This is a month ago. We were going to get into this. What does it actually do?
Yeah.
Because everyone gets sucked into price, but what are the things it's actually doing nowadays to help with freedom?
Yes.
And stuff like that, and progress freedom. And so anyway, those are some of the.
Why don't we start there? Because your newsletter today said that, and you said like, hey, the actual price action of Bitcoin. This is where I'm not an expert. Like you and another buddy of ours, Brandon Perry, like you guys study Bitcoin. You know a lot about the internal workings. As far as it's not just the price of Bitcoin that's important, but all the freedom aspect and the technology of it. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with, there's this saying in Bitcoin, there's 4 or 5 different monikers all the time. One of them is Bitcoin fixes this, and the Bitcoin movement is really a libertarian movement by nature as of right now. Eventually it'll encompass all people, but for right now, in the last 10 years, it's really been. Initially it was kind of cyberpunk, computer science, geeks, nerds, stuff like that.
Yeah.
People that got introduced to it, Peter Schiffs of the world, people that got introduced to it by other sound money advocates. That was 10 years ago, and then the first 5 years or so. And then over the last 5 years, it has become a little bit more of a political movement. And you've seen it get into more of now it's in politics, and there's senators and people talking about it. And it's really a libertarian contingent of people. Now I'm actually seeing a swath of progressives, maybe say Marxist, progressive people that are on the left side of the spectrum, because it's funny, every year or two that goes by, a new segment of people realize, oh my gosh, Bitcoin gives me the ability to do what I've been fighting for.
Right.
Whether it's ESG narrative, which again, I don't think there's a lot of merit to that, because it's really just a control spectrum. The free market can solve the climate problems that the world might encounter, right? And that's up for debate as to what's actually going on. You talk to some people, and it's right. So that's a whole road to go down. But whether you're into that in climate, you could talk about Exxon or Mobil, these Marathon going in and mining Bitcoin using stranded energy. You always see the flares, right? The smokestacks with the fire coming out, and they're flaring off gas or whatever. That's just burning pollution into the air. Well, they're now, these massive companies, energy companies are now taking Bitcoin mining rigs, putting them on top of that, using that wasted energy and pollution to then mine Bitcoin and turn it into energy, cleaning the environment, ironically. So that's when at the end of the day, that's when if someone's really, you have Ethereum and Ripple and all these other altcoins are pushed by the World Economic Forum, they're on their website. There's a reason for that, because they have a single owner, they've got a marketing team, they can be corrupted. Where Bitcoin, you can't corrupt it. It's not, there is no owner, it's decentralized, it's whack-a-mole. There is none of that. That's why, initially I was into altcoins. I was into all the coins, and I didn't know anything 4 or 5 years ago, and I was just kind of like, oh, it's a venture capital world, and it's like on penny stocks, and I don't know what's going to happen. And then after 2018, 2019, there was that bear market, that winter there in crypto, and then 2020 came around, and that's when all this stuff kind of started happening, and it became very evident to me, like, wow, oh my gosh, I need to really get into this. I don't remember exactly what the catalyst was for Bitcoin, but it was the world economic, environment going on, economics. They're printing, again, trillions and trillions of dollars, and Bitcoin kind of saw that, and that's why you had this run up in this massive, gold and silver had a little run up first, and then you had this massive, went up, 10x just that year alone. By the end of that year, or just the beginning of 2021, it went up 10x, because Bitcoin's finite. But again, to me, that's the least interesting aspect. To me, the most interesting thing is the homeless guy in San Francisco that doesn't have a bank account, can't have a bank account because he has no assets, or it's the family in Nigeria who doesn't have a bank account, or the people in El Salvador who have to travel 200 miles to go to a bank or to go use Western Union to get $100 sent to them from a family member across the world, and then they get $25 in fees taken out by Western Union when they can, if they just have an internet connection, which vast majority of people do, and it's more and more every day. All you need, that homeless person, the person in El Salvador, Nigeria, all you need is an internet connection. And boom, you've got an app on your phone, and you can receive Bitcoin. You can receive monetary value. It could be, whatever you want to call it, banana something. The fact is Bitcoin, just don't even think about it. But the fact that you've got an app on your phone that can trade monetary value instantaneously for a penny, and it could be thousands of dollars or $10 or $1 billion, and you can do that at the speed of light without any middleman. It doesn't go to Chase and then Jamie Dimon saying, oh, hey, whoa, who's sending what, where? That's the technology. That's where things are completely changing, and that's why the elites hate Bitcoin. They are the ones pushing all of the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and now they're pushing all these narratives of, whoa, we gotta restrict Bitcoin, and whoa, the energy concerns, and oh, this and that. That's all completely driven from the top, the elites. Because if you actually peer into it, which I did 2 years ago, again, the first 2 years, didn't know. I just thought they're all the same. Who was going to be the fastest horse? And then as soon as you got into it more, I got to like that 50, not even 50 hours, but 10 hours of studying it. It was like, oh my gosh, it was freedom for everybody. You're progressive and you want the world to be, in the likes of Karl Marx. Bitcoin, no one can take you out of the system. Donald Trump can't come in and say, you're out of the system. Joe Biden can't come into the system if you're on the right, or Lois Lerner from the IRS 10 years ago, targeting conservatives on Facebook, targeting their groups and making living hell for them. That can't happen anymore on Bitcoin because it's decentralized. No one can screw with it. You can't touch it. And that's why the elites hate it. So anyway, that's some of the high-level 30.
Let me stop you right there. Don't forget that train of thought. I just want to pause for a quick commercial break. So if you're enjoying this conversation, and if you're watching us on TikTok, double tap the screen. That's going to send Brandon and I some likes, and that's going to trigger the algorithm to show it out to more people, okay? Make sure that you're following us, Brandon Gentili on TikTok, Sneller Financial on TikTok, and if you're also watching us on Facebook, you probably are already connected with us. But make sure that you share this video and tune in for more. So that's kind of quick commercial break right there. Let's turn it back over to Brandon talking about, you want to talk a little bit more in depth as far as like the World Economic Forum and some of the things they're doing?
Man, yeah, so, Glenn Beck's got a lot of, over the years, he's been trashed by the media, obviously. You have, what we talked about Rush Limbaugh earlier. You have these guys that have, what really was an eye-opener for me was like 2008. He wrote Common Sense by Thomas Paine. And
great book. Yeah, got it downstairs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he rewrote it, just made it modern for today, right?
Yeah.
And that was the one thing, I remember him talking on TV in like 2006, 2007 on CNN Headline News. And I remember him just being like, I was like, dude, this guy gets it. Like, how come no one in the media talks like this? And then he went to Fox, and then he went and did his own thing in 2011. And he has had the blaze for the last 10 years. But he was the first one really talking about postmodernism and progressivism 10, 15, 20 years ago and predicting a lot of these things. And because he was just a massive student of history. Now, right now, I think him and David Barton have the largest, they might have the largest now museum of like artifacts of like American history and the founding fathers of any one country. So they're building this museum in Texas, and it's so that was the World Economic Forum. I remember a couple years ago, like 2-3 years ago, hearing about the Great Reset from them, and but he's been talking about this for 10 years. The agenda used to be Agenda 21, and now it's Agenda 2030. So he had written books about this 10, 12 years ago, and talked about what the UN is going to do in cahoots with the World Economic Forum. The WEF wasn't that involved, they weren't that high profile yet. And they were, I should say, but they weren't a social media phenomenon. Social media was new in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so Glenn Beck was writing these books, and that's where I first heard about all these people, Agenda 2021, and it was all this, and it all had to do with climate, and it was initially, so going way back though, the World Economic Forum was started in 70, 71, and Klaus Schwab is the chairman of the World Economic Forum, and he started it really because his idol, and I believe his professor at Harvard, was Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State with Nixon, and started the petrodollar. So they took the dollar off gold, and so this is coming full circle a lot into this, but he then made the deal with Saudi Arabia and said, hey, we'll protect you if you if you trade oil for dollars everywhere in the world. So that's where the start of the petrodollar came from. We went off gold and went on the petrodollar system. And so the World Economic Forum came from, he was studying, Klaus Schwab loved Henry Kissinger, and then all the other things were the Club of Rome and the limits to growth. And, again, Glenn Beck's talked about this a ton. George Gammon, just in the last year or two, has really been talking about this. And then I'm sure anyone listening to this has seen a lot of different economic macro people talking about this. It's become a lot more of a phenomenon, the Great Reset and World Economic Forum. So now they've kind of come to light and seen, and everyone's kind of seen this now more, where it's really in the shadows 10 years ago, where it was, you're a conspiracy theorist. If you're talking about this,
right,
but yet they're writing about it for decades. They've been writing about, hey, we're going to use climate change, kind of coming full circle from the ESG thing earlier. Club of Rome and limits to growth was the initial, they had this plan to basically come together and say, hey, we need this global problem to obtain control. And they landed on climate change. We're going to say, hey, global warming, climate change, whatever it is. And initially it was global cooling. In like the 70s, 80s, and then that didn't work, so they rebranded it to climate change in the 90s, 2000s, and now in the last 10, 15 years, it's climate change. It's just like, well,
it's global cooling, then global warming, and now it's climate change, because we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
And now it's ESG. So now that 2020 is on here, now we hear ESG. So they're rebranding again because it doesn't work. They keep, because all it is power and control. That's all they want. Yeah. They could care less. So they're flying around in jets to Davos every week because they don't.
Well, they can get away with it, but you shouldn't because you're a peon.
Exactly.
We should have special rights because we're the people in control,
and
right?
It blows me away, and you see this on TikTok all the time. It blows me away how many people will fight with you and fight to take. It's like the Matrix, right? Morpheus is telling Neo there will be millions of people who will fight to keep this system because their very existence depends on this system.
Yes.
And that's the biggest problem. I think that's what you and I, kind of coming full circle, this is the World Economic Forum, this is what you and I try to fight against, which is it's freeing your mind, being on the edge of the coin, seeing both sides, and not saying, because it really goes both ways. It's one side, you have people who love Trump or people who love the left or Biden or Clinton, whoever it is. But it's not, they're not the answers. We're the answers, right? Like the bottom up in us, in our locales, and in really being involved there. That's the end of the day. And that's what takes down the World Economic Forum. Everyone's looking at these global entities and the WHO and the WEF and the Bank of International Settlements and the IMF. They're looking for the answers from these people when it's us. Like it's us day to day. Like, when's the last time any of us have been to our local PTA meeting? When's the last time one of us, if every
Well, you go to a PTA meeting, you're probably going to get labeled a domestic terrorist.
Well, you will.
That's what they're doing. Just you're a concerned parent. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if every adult goes to one PTA meeting a year, just think about the difference that makes and the change all of a sudden in the world because, it's ground up, it's bottom up. Of going to one PTA meeting or going to...
We got a character here on my TikTok thread. His screen name is Jesus Christ. I think his picture is small, but it appears to be Jesus Christ. And he says that Trump is our Lord and Savior. All right, so you want to take some questions? I got a few questions rolling in.
Yeah,
we got one gentleman, Rick's asking,
let's take some questions.
When will places like Walmart start accepting Bitcoin? Are they already doing that? Are they going to?
Strike just announced. Strike announced Jack Mullers, who's late 20s. He just announced at the Bitcoin conference in April. He announced that he partnered with Shopify, NRC, and Blackhawk, who are the three biggest point-of-sale systems in the world. They encompass like 95% of all point-of-sale systems in the world. And I was just talking to my barber the other day, Jack from Waterford. He's awesome. And I was asking him, like, what's your point of sale?
Did he give you a good haircut? Let's see.
He did.
Yeah.
So, and I just asked him. He was like, yeah, I think we have Blackhawk or something like that. So I was just kind of checking. I've been telling a lot of business owners because business owners see the most amount of people every day, right? The local liquor stores or whatever. And I was telling the guy Bushimi's here in Clarkston as well, and I was just telling him, and he was like, oh, my brother's been telling me I need to get a Bitcoin ATM, but I was like, no, you need, Strike, you need this implemented into your point of sale system because now the merchant fees are gone. Now you're saving 2 or 3% every single transaction because now you're not using Chase or the Venmo, PayPal, all these intermediaries to do what Bitcoin can do instantaneously. So long story short, that yes, you can use them with Strike. You can transfer using the Bitcoin network. You don't have to. It's not that they have to accept Bitcoin or not. It's you. There's ways now to transfer your Bitcoin using the Bitcoin network. I should say the rails, the payment rails, instead of using like FedWire or using like your bank's rails, the legacy payment system. You can use that on the Lightning network. The Lightning network is built on the Bitcoin first layer. So that now you can use that really anywhere. And now some businesses are slower than others in adapting. It's going to take months and years probably for this to really filter out. But the more insaneness that happens, the faster that adoption curve keeps speeding up. So you can go do that. To answer your question, you can use Stripe. There's different apps where you can go and create an invoice. People can scan your invoice really quickly within seconds. And you have final settlements like you and I trading a piece of gold. There's no chargeback. It's not like, 30 days I got to wait because my credit card, it took me 5 seconds to approve it. Just like you're sitting at a gas station, you can swipe your card and it takes them 5 seconds. Bitcoin, it takes, or a Lightning network, it takes a second, and it's final settlement. It's right there. It's now in your, there's no chargeback. There's no 30 days from now it's gone. No merchant fee, and no one can stop the transaction. So anyway, yeah, you can, to answer his question.
Let's see what else we got here. Some questions. What do you think about XRP?
So XRP, I'm like I said, I've for 4 or 5 years been in Bitcoin or in crypto in general, but the last 2 or 3 years have just been Bitcoin only. Been studying it and going through all this. XRP, one of the big things with XRP, again, to my knowledge, was that they want to be, privacy. Monero, the Monero and XRP were probably two of the bigger ones that wanted, privacy. What people, again, in all of my experience studying and talking to people, it's the patience game, right? So everyone, you had these block size wars in 2017 with Bitcoin, where they wanted to change the actual protocol of Bitcoin, the first layer. And fortunately, the nodes won out. The miners, everyone thought like the miners had all this power, but they don't. The nodes actually have the power, and the people running the system. And so they end up keeping it really the same, basically. And what happens though is, just like the internet we have now, it's built in layers. It's not just built, like you don't have email, all these different layers built into one layer. It's like 5, 6, 7 layers of the system, and then apps are built on top of these things. It's not like Google's not in the internet first layer. It's built on top. So that's how Bitcoin blockchain is going to be built. Bitcoin, the protocol itself, then Lightning is the layer 2 network where it's built on top of that. And then you're having these other networks. And Lightning already does a good job of privacy and keeping things more private. And that's even being upgraded even more. And then other layers will be on top of that. So you're going to have these things happen, which just happened recently. The Tornado Cash got sanctioned, which was an Ethereum thing. That's why I don't.
Yeah, tell me about that. So I saw that, and I have no idea what that even is.
Yeah, so that was the government basically sending a shot across the bow to anyone really not holding Bitcoin, quite honestly, and just showing the centralized nature of all these coins. And the Ethereum is centralized. A lot of them are just decentralized in name only. They're centralized. They have owners. Like I said, they all have owners. XRP, I forget the guy's name, but he had a massive campaign against Bitcoin, spending millions of dollars. Spent like $5 million to campaign against Bitcoin and to change its code, which you can't do. I mean, you would have to. We can get into that obviously, but why wouldn't you spend that $5 million in investing in 10,000 Bitcoin? Now, when it goes up eventually over time, you stand to benefit way more instead of fighting it, because he has a coin he's trying to promote, and that's the problem. But again, the problem with all this is the decentralized nature of Bitcoin will continue eating. And if you compare all these other coins to Bitcoin, all of them continue to crash over time. And so when you're looking at first mover effects, and part of this first mover effect for Bitcoin's first, so now that's the brand. So you can copy Bitcoin's code, like XRP and Litecoin are copies of Bitcoin's code. So it's people trying to, or Bitcoin Cash, they were trying to copy it and say, hey, no, this is the real Bitcoin, I'm going this way. And they've tried, and they've had people kind of move that way. Some went to XRP, some went to Litecoin, some went to Bitcoin Cash. But then they all eventually sell out and end up going back to Bitcoin, because it is the one with the network, the developers, the systems, the layers being built, the freedom aspect, the decentralization. There's no owner, there's no pre-mine. Satoshi's wallet has been sitting there for 12 years, never been touched. And where you have these Vitalik Buterin in Ethereum, he's talked about rug pulling his people, like joked about it.
Yeah,
it's like it's going to happen. I mean, and it's happened many times. 20,000 crypto altcoins. Those are all because of Bitcoin. It's all people seeing. Like you and I could go on a website right now and go create our own coin. And if you and I have a big enough marketing team, if we have $20 million sitting here, we can say, hey, we can go hire the best guys in the world and go pump this coin out, get celebrities, pay influencers, and then boom, all of a sudden it's like a stock, right? You and I have an IPO, a stock, we take 70% of the shares, we're selling the other 30%, and boom, the thing is going from $1, and then all of a sudden we have a great marketing team and salespeople, and it's $300 a share. And then you and I are like, sweet, let's sell out. Boom, click, and then we sell out, rug pull everybody. So the shares drop, and that's what you're seeing with a lot of these coins.
Yeah,
because it's centralized. So
that's a great segue, what you just said, into our next question here, which the question is, let me just see how it's worded. All right, hold on. We got a lot of questions. All right, let's go with this one. We have, what do you think of Shiba?
So I don't think highly of any coin other than Bitcoin. Again, like Dogecoin is a meme coin. It started as a joke, and then it took off. Again, people like Elon Musk. I have a whole thing about Elon Musk. I'm actually writing an article about this soon. Elon Musk is one of the smartest dudes in the world, but he's also one of the scariest dudes in the world. And it's two sides of the coin, like we talked about, right? Like you have to be on the edge. You can't just think Donald Trump's the savior. You can't think Elon Musk's the savior. You can't think that Bernie Sanders is the savior, Because then, there's a guy in the 1930s in Germany that people thought was a savior, right? Like you see what happens when you get into this game of thinking men are the answer, right? It's like Jesus Christ is the answer, right? Or in our terms, here on earth at least, I mean, you say code is the answer, or law. We used to be a nation of laws, now we're a nation of men. Well, the next man gets in, he just writes more executive orders and changes all the goalposts and moves them all. And then the next guy gets in. And then the 30s happen in Germany. Now we're changing all the goalposts again, and these people are the problem. It's like, no. That's not what's going on. So, Musk, to me, is one of those guys where he's pro on Dogecoin. Shiba Inu is, I believe it's a little different than...
Something going on there. Are you still live?
It was like saying take a break or something like that.
Is your phone getting too hot?
No, I think it was like a snooze, a timer thing I had set on there. I must have hit on accident. So,
it's one of those things to make sure that you're not on your phone too long.
Exactly, screen time. Insane world we live. Talking about Elon Musk, and so you look at him. That guy is able to say anything he wants, and gets away with it. Like he's out there bagging Bill Gates. He's out there bagging the government, doing this now. I mean, a high-profile guy, and he's just saying whatever he wants. He's not censored. Donald Trump
dig it.
Yeah, well, but which is great. That's great. People should be called out
until he starts going after the people I like.
Well, and that's the culture we live in, right? However, this is my point with Elon Musk, though. The point with him is that he says all these things, but yet he wields all this power the government wants, and that's what's scary. And this is again coming full circle. This is why I love Bitcoin, because there is no centralized point where the government can, Klaus Schwab or World Economic Forum, the government can say, I'm going after that guy, and we get him, we control everybody. Because Elon Musk has Neuralink, so it can run the thoughts in your brain. It's the hair strand they implant into their testing on stroke patients, where they can help them remember things. So now what the World Economic Forum has talked about owning your thoughts and controlling your thoughts. Pre-crime, Minority Report with Tom Cruise from years ago, 15 years ago. And are people going to commit crimes? We're going to arrest people?
I gotta go back to watch that.
Dude, it's insane.
Yeah.
Matrix, Minority Report, all these movies. And so and then he's making the cars, right? The electronic cars. I mean, that's great. Like, I love technology. We all love technology. We all love making our life easier. But what happens when all of a sudden, Ron and I say something on here, which we already have today, I have. And
I piss off people on the reg. Exactly. They're just going to shut my car off and say, you're not going anywhere.
Exactly. And Elon owns all that.
Yeah.
So you control one guy, now you control all the cars on the road. You control Neuralink, so the thinking, everything. So the whole point is he's equally the most aspirational guy there is, and he's also the most dangerous guy in the world. And that's the point. When you have centralization and choke points like that, bottlenecks, you create this. You have to have trust in that person that they are going to be the best actor in the world. They have to be Jesus Christ, or else they are going to fail at the end of the day. And that's what's scary. That's why Bitcoin is increasing every single day. The hash rate goes up. The Lightning Network, the users go up. It continually has adoption because you see the Dutch farmers, you see the Canadian farmers, Canadian truckers, the Dutch farmers. You see all these people in Ukraine. You see them all using Bitcoin more because they realize, or in third world countries or developing countries, you see them now saying, "Oh my gosh, this is my way out. No one can take this from me." This is why the El Salvador president is always middle fingering and tweeting at the IMF, saying like, "You don't own us anymore." Because IMF would come in and they give these loans out to all these developing countries and say, "Hey, we'll give you a loan. Like your currency collapsed, we'll give you a loan," and then they got you. Now we own you. Now we own your country. We own your resources. We don't own anything in it.
Yeah.
Because now you're on our dole. Like you're the debtor and we're the creditor. So anyway, that's what IMF has always worked like that. Now El Salvador is like.
I want to come back and unpack that, some of the freedom elements between like the Dutch farmers and the truckers in Canada. But before we do that, let's stop for a little commercial break. So if you're enjoying this conversation and this content, do me a favor, double tap the screen. That's going to send us some likes. If you're on Facebook, please like. If you're on Brandon's TikTok over there, again, please like. Share this video out there with somebody who would find value in it. And make sure that you're following us here on TikTok if you're not already. So I'm Ron at Sneller Financial. This is Brandon Gentile. He's got a really good TikTok as well. We're also both on YouTube with longer form content. And then again on Facebook, of course. Let's go hear some comments, Brandon. Okay, so here's a comment. ETH has a brighter future than Bitcoin. What would be your response to that? Oh, I forgot about that camera up there. That's for the podcast recording, right? All right, good.
We have the pod up
all right,
there.
so Ethereum has a brighter future than Bitcoin.
Yeah, so in ways, yes, you could say that it's but they're two totally different things. So Ethereum is initially they want it to be money, right? So money has to be a store of value and has to be secure and decentralized first, really, to be a money. And Ethereum is literally not that. It's centralized. It is, and there's a trilemma. And what it is, it's security, decentralization, and scalability. And I think it was, I'm trying to think, it might have been 20 or 30 years ago, I forget who was writing about it, and they said there's a trilemma that you have when you're in the cryptocurrency world, and you could only pick 2 or 3. It might have been Vitalik himself, actually. I think it was like 10 years ago. He wrote about you have to have 2 or 3 in the protocol layer, and you have to pick those 2. So Bitcoin chose in the miners and the nodes over the years, everyone has chosen that it's going to be decentralization and security are the 2 things that it has. Where everything else, in essence, has picked, for long story short, have all picked scalability to some degree or another, and one of the other ones, either scalability and security or scalability and decentralization. But if you don't have those 2 things, security or decentralization, well, security, well then, okay, it can be hacked. It's easily, someone can screw with it, or it's not decentralized, like we were saying, Vitalik or the guy who runs XRP. Well, all I got to do is I just got to pay that one guy off, and now I own it. Now I own the whole network. Now I can shut it down. In Ethereum, again, people are missing the whole point with everything. What's going to happen eventually over time is all these coins, all these protocols, everything will be built on top of Bitcoin. Like I talked about these layers. This is hilarious. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, talked about this for years and said he was a Bitcoin maximalist, and it was just like, hey, Bitcoin's the only one. Every other coin you guys are working on is completely pointless. Like they're just gonna be side chains and then testing grounds for what's gonna go on top of the Bitcoin layers and be built, which will eventually happen because.
But hasn't he changed his tune though?
He has. Now he runs the Coinbase casino.
Yeah.
He
makes money off all these other
exactly.
things.
He drank from the chalice of easy money, and everyone kept coming to him saying, "Hey, if you list my coin, I'll give you this. I'll do whatever." And he said, like, eventually he gave in, and they're listing Shiba Inu, they're listing every ridiculous coin out there, and so you have these people that have sold their soul. At the end of the day, that's where the term comes from. They've sold out to make money, to make fiat currency in the short term. And a lot of them, they go and turn around and buy Bitcoin because they know what it is. The people who actually study these things actually know what's going on. So Ethereum, at the end of the day, it's something it's going to collapse into something like Bitcoin. It's going to collapse into that eventually over time. It might be 5, 10, 20 years from now, but it'll eventually collapse into that because it's not decentralized. Like they've already had problems. You've seen Solana keeps going down. When you're built on.
I saw a guy this morning post a video talk about shorting Solana.
Yeah,
right now it's a really good move. I don't know what's going on with Solana because I don't follow crypto like
the
you.
network just goes down, and it's VC. I mean, you like the Chamath Palihapitiya, whatever, the guy, the billionaire, is a VC, has had numbers company. There's videos of him laughing, like basically saying him and one of the other founders of Solana, the venture capitalists in there, saying like, we're gonna rug pull you guys. Like, we're gonna rug pull all the main people. It's a YouTube video. You can watch these guys laughing at people, and people just don't understand. So Ethereum, when you run on, like if I can call, if Joe Biden or the president, doesn't matter who it is, can call Infura or Amazon Web Services, which is pretty much what Ethereum runs on, and you can call and click and flip 2 switches and shut off the network, what does it matter? Ethereum could be God's gift to Earth, but if I can go shut it down and I just had to tell the president or someone or the guy in whoever, G or whoever, just to go, hey, go shut it down. Go pay this guy off, go, and shut it down. What does it matter at the end of the day? And that's where everything will eventually be built, the layers on top of Bitcoin. And there are a lot of these projects are great projects, and they will be built on top of Bitcoin. Like smart contracts, all that, that's great. We're getting them on Bitcoin already. But people, going back to the big thing, which is patience. So many people want the now money. They are asking to be rug pulled. Like they want the now, they want the quick buck, they want this thing, and they couldn't wait. Vitalik was one of those guys. He couldn't wait 5, 10 years because he was like, I just want it now. I want to do it now. I'm going to change the Bitcoin protocol. Well, now you don't have a store of value. You don't have, money has to be a store of value first. And once you lose that, you're fiat currency. So you can't build off this protocol financial layer. Now it's just the stable, it's an upside down pyramid. You're building off this unstable platform where eventually it could be doing all these amazing things, and then eventually it's like the American Empire. We're doing all these amazing things, but what does it matter if we're doing this? We're violently swinging back and forth now. The interest rates are doing this, and the society's doing this. The person we elect is different every year, like drastically, one end of the pendulum and the other end of the pendulum. Yeah. Eventually that just falls. That iceberg just flips over, and it's like, game over.
Yeah. So speaking of like interest rates in the Fed, today I saw that they came out with language that they believe that they have to raise interest rates to restrictive levels to get inflation under control. And that kind of goes along here with a comment from Sneller Financial. I am Sneller Financial, so this must be, this is either my assistant or my wife. This is my lovely wife asking tangible coins versus crypto, which is more valuable? And so by tangible coins, I'm assuming she means precious metals, gold, silver, any of the other precious metals, whether it's copper, palladium. There's different things out there. Yes. I'm assuming they both fit and they can be like valuable in different situations, but what would you say to that?
So they absolutely, like, I'm a big believer in diversifying. Like even you watch a lot of the same guys you watch, right? We study a lot of the same guys, and it's diversification. It's not being in one thing, and not just like one stock, but different asset classes. That's a big thing. The 4 or 5 different big asset classes, like big things. So I believe that you have to have some of both, because the tail risks to me are the internet gets shut off. Like we just talked about Ethereum.
Yeah, I mean they could do that.
Yeah, I mean
shut down the power grid, turn the internet off.
Yeah, I mean that's very hard. And the reason I don't think that will ever happen, it might be, it's that it's hard to move. So you got to put it on a ship. It costs all this money. So to move it. So anyway, the big thing with gold is that it got really centralized. So it sat in vaults. It went to banks. It went to the government to sit there and protect. And so that gave them the ability to then print more fund coupons and say, oh, we've got more gold than we actually have in here, and we're going to print fund coupons and just spend them all over the place. That was the big problem. So gold, or because Bitcoin chose to be, like we said, that trilemma, because they had chosen to have security and decentralization, now it's that store of value. And that's why you see BlackRock every week, some new huge person comes into Bitcoin, because they're like, oh my goodness, like what Fidelity, months, years, JP Morgan, they all talk crap about it. One, they all started about 4 or 5 years ago, because I think they were trying to, that 2017 run up really put it on the map, I think, for a lot of people, like the mainstream, like wealth managers, JP Morgan, all that. And they wanted to get in. They wanted to get the price down and create fear, uncertainty, and doubt, so that they could get in and start accumulating. And then it's like, okay, now we're in it.
And then pump it. Yeah.
Exactly. Because it happened to .com in the 90s. Same thing. They scared the retail person out of it in the 90s. And then it went boom. And then they just dropped the bag on everyone in 2000. And it's the same thing happens. They try to do the same thing now. It didn't work as well as the .com stuff necessarily, but still they did it to a degree. But now you have BlackRock, all these people getting into it, because they realize, oh my goodness, this asset is different than every other asset out there. To that point though, again, I do believe you should have a little bit of physical stuff. Again, food storage, right? Energy, some water, all these different tail risks that could happen. Huge. You have to have it.
Yeah.
So
okay. And now here's a question, or here's a comment right here that I agree with. Now, I am not a crypto expert by any means, but this is actually how I feel about it. So this guy or gal has a fake name. It's just LOL and then a bunch of different letters. But they say right here that basically Bitcoin is gold, Ethereum is silver in the crypto market, and that's actually how I think about it. Yeah. Now you probably have a lot more education in the in the crypto space than I do, but like just as far as like that basic statement, like how would you respond to that? Is that somewhat accurate, or should we look at it in a deeper way?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, to a degree, yes, it is. And so how I would look at it, in Fidelity, again, I just did like you're saying, the reading. I read did a YouTube video reading Fidelity's report on Bitcoin first, and it's 30 page or 25 pages, and it's a report on why Bitcoin is different than everything else. And it really is it's a great read. So go check it out. Go to Fidelity Assets or Investment Assets or whatever, and go check that out. It's called Bitcoin First. But it's because of the decentralization of it. Yes, it is like gold. Ethereum though is it's I forgot exactly what I'm going to say, but it is like they want it to be the world computer. And have the ability to do smart contracts, but they're putting the cart before the horse. And that's kind of what Fidelity says in a way as well. You're putting the cart before the horse, instead of just building this on the Bitcoin, a decentralized store of value layer. Now you're creating this upside down pyramid. You're, like we were saying earlier, you're creating this wobbly structure basically that has the potential to just one call to Infura, one call to Amazon, it's gone. But yes, it is the ability. Silver is, in a general sense, though, yes. In a way, Ethereum has been posed as the thing where we're going to build a lot of stuff with it, smart contracts, all this stuff, NFTs, all these things, just like silver. Like right now, silver is used in a lot of things. It's not as much of a monetary store of value anymore. I think that actually will change a little bit over the years. I think more of the monetary premium will come back to it. I think gold or Bitcoin will take a lot of the monetary premium long term over the next 5, 10, 15, 50 years, 100 years. It'll suck a lot of that monetary premium away from all the assets, which is actually good because now it'll be affordable. Now things will be affordable to people. Like real estate will get the monetary premium sucked away by Bitcoin, which is great because first-time home buyers can't do anything. I mean, we have a real estate team and people can't even buy homes because it's so unaffordable. So much of the extra cash in the system is run into real estate. Prices are double. Well, they shouldn't be. They should be half. The $400,000 house should be $200,000. Well, now the average person can't do it because it's a bunch of monetary premium put into it. So anyway, that's a different story.
But that, though, is where you start getting into my realm, where if you own assets, you like seeing the assets go inflated. And then if you're smart, well, I shouldn't say if you're smart, maybe better than selling the asset and having to pay capital gains, that's where you borrow against that asset and use that money to do other things. Like, so last summer, we refinanced a house that is now a rental. We used to live in it. We were able to refinance due to this huge run up, and interest rates were still really low. I was able to refinance, take 6 figures cash out, lock in a 30-year loan at 3.5%, which 3.5% on a 30-year for a rental is ridiculous.
Stealing money.
Yeah. And it took 6 figures cash out, right?
Yeah.
And then took that money. I had to open up 2 new life insurance policies to accept that cash. Did a hard money lending deal with you, which actually just gave me the check, paid me back the principal and the interest.
Yes.
But that's the thing, though. Like, when assets go up, people who have assets, that's good for.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean to sound like a dick or anything, but like, my goal is to build wealth for my family,
right,
for my clients that I work with. That's what my job is. And I was just telling a young guy today where he just got an investment portfolio started. He started it with, it was 5,000 or 10,000 here in the last month or two. Well, the market has started to come back, and so his account is up 7.5%, 8% already in a month. And I said, dude, you made like a really good decision. And I said, what we're going to do is we're going to continue to invest monthly. And he's got a Roth IRA and a brokerage account with me. We're going to continue to invest monthly on a regular basis. But then when the market dips, then we're going to throw extra at it and take advantage of those lower prices. So whether you're looking at stocks, whether you're looking at real estate, you want to try to buy those assets on sale. Bitcoin,
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes.
But when it comes back, again, it's sad for people who have a first-time home buyer. I can't afford anything. But you got to take some personal responsibility. These are all the people who are listening to idiots like Dave Ramsey. Put as big of a down payment as possible, do a 15-year loan, make sure you can afford that. And so they waited, and what happened these last 2 years? Dave Ramsey priced them out of the market. If you're following that, when I was saying, do not listen to Dave Ramsey, interest rates are low, get a 30-year loan, because you can get a 30-year loan. Like, my primary residence here is under 3% on a 30-year.
Yep.
You keep your monthly payment low. You put the least amount of cash down.
Yep.
Like at 2.75%. Why am I trying to put a bunch of cash down?
Right.
It's like with inflation
Absolutely.
at 8.5%, interest rates under 3%. Now they're not anymore, but I'm talking about just a year ago. Like, it's like this effed up system is paying me to borrow the money.
Yes.
Well, why would I want to pay that back sooner? I want to keep my monthly payment on my mortgage as low as possible.
Yes.
Take that excess cash flow and buy assets.
Yep.
And then recently here when the stock market came down, this year I put way more money in the stock market than ever before because the market's been down.
Yep.
Same thing with crypto. Market's been down, right? Now that the market's coming back up, I'm going to slow down on probably my stock market investments and hoard cash, and really hope that the same thing happens with real estate now, right? Because my assets have appreciated. I've cashed them out with a loan, so I'm not paying capital gains. But then if they do go down, like some people suspect over the last year or two, I'm going to be sitting on tons of cash, both in my money market and my life insurance policy, to be able to step in and buy some more real estate assets. And so that's kind of the game. Like, you have got to do the opposite, the exact opposite of what everybody else thinks is smart. Like, the traditional financial planning is bullshit.
Yes.
It gets you like mediocre results, but then you're built wobbly. Like, if one thing goes wrong, like, you're screwed, right? That's why I don't lock a bunch of money in 401k.
Yep.
Because I have no control over it. I want control, I want access to be able to take advantage of other opportunities out here.
Yes.
Right?
Which
so, I mean, that's
so smart.
I mean, that's the thing.
Exactly. That's why you and I get along so much, because we, it's, you're one of the few people. There's not many financial planners and financial managers and asset managers, not many people that understand that, and it can speak to that whole rant you just did.
Well, because I'm also entrepreneurial minded. I'm not the typical, invest everything for the long term in a 401k. Like, retirement is one part of it.
And you're not selfish.
Well, yeah,
but just invest what makes me the most money, right? Like,
but the whole industry, though, is like, to me, it's like, why focus on a point in time 40 years from now? Like, that's fine, like, as one part of your financial plan, but that you ask financial advisors, like, typical, where should I put my money? Invest in your 401k for the long term. Roth IRA, maybe. They want it all in the market so they can make money under management. When you put it into 401k, it's locked up.
Yes.
Right? And you got to pay a hefty penalty to get it back out, right? That's what they want. They want you trapped. They want you locked up. They want to make recurring money management fees on that, right? That's what they want. And if all your money's in a 401k, you have very little liquidity. So then to live your life, you got to rely on the banks. And you've got auto loans, home mortgages, credit cards, student loans, business loans. So you got all these payments going to the bank. So you're lining the bank's pockets too.
Yes.
And then, and meanwhile, 99% of people
That's the spider web that you do, that you draw
Yes,
out.
yes, exactly, yeah. And meanwhile, 99% of people are employees, W-2 employees. They have no business where they're able to make extra income and take advantage of tax deductions.
Yes.
So that's why the average American has 1/3 of their income siphoned off for income tax, 1/3 of their income siphoned off for interest payments to the bank. The little amount of money they're saving, they put it all in their 401k. It's locked up for the long term. On average, every 6 to 8 years, they lose 30% of it in a market crash. Then they got to wait for it to come back. And then that's fine. Like, the market goes up and down. But the point is, because they have nothing else in their financial system, a lot of times when the market goes down, what is happening at the same time? A recession.
Yes.
And so maybe they lose their job or their hours cut back. They have no liquidity. They got to tap into their 401k. So they're paying the income tax, they're paying the 10% penalty, and they're locking in a 30% loss. And that's why the average American who's like, oh, I'm doing everything Dave Ramsey's telling me to do, but that's why they end up taking 5 steps forward, 4 steps back, 5 steps forward, 4 steps back. And over the course of 15, 20 years, they're just spinning their wheels. That's why, I mean, look, Vanguard puts this information out. You see, I'm gonna turn the camera around and see me. You see all these financial gurus on TikTok saying, well, if you just invest for the long term, you're gonna retire with $3 million. And my question is, if that really works the way they say it does, why aren't there a bunch of multimillionaires walking around? Why is it that Vanguard just came out with data saying that their median 401k balance is just a little bit over $200,000? I mean, these are people investing for the long term. Because when you say, oh, it's just gonna average 10%, you're also assuming that nothing's going to go wrong, that you're never going to need liquidity, you're never going to lose a job, you're never going to have a disability or medical issues, you're never going to have to tap your 401. And that's not life, Brandon. That's not life. That's why I build my financial plan the way that I do. Yes. Making sure you have enough liquidity, making sure you have things like insurance, and then build your investments on top of that. Because, like, again, that's why I use the foundation, is insurance. That's why I use Bitcoin as like a currency alternative and putting more money in there. I don't want to save in the dollar, right? That's why you do those kind of things. You want to like get outside of the system, outside of the traditional advice, because the traditional advice goes to serve and profit the system. It goes to profit the matrix, the IRS, the banks, Wall Street, and that's what it's all about. Yes. All right, let's go to some questions here. Oh, quick commercial. Double tap that screen if you're on TikTok, and if you're enjoying this conversation, that's going to send us some likes. That's going to promote the video out there. Also, please share the video with somebody who may find value in this educational content. Again, we're just talking about how financial freedom is freedom. It gives you more choices, more opportunities. It's not that money or wealth makes you happy. It simply allows you to not have stress. It allows you to do the things that you want to do, just that feeling of freedom. And again, follow me at Sneller Financial on TikTok. Brandon Gentili, also on TikTok. We're also live on Facebook. I'm assuming most of our Facebook viewers are already connected with us. Facebook's kind of going like the way of the dinosaurs. Like, I used to post a lot on Facebook, and I've got whatever it is, like 2,500 followers. I've been on TikTok for a year, and I've got 260,000 followers. So, but it's been one of those things like being able to tap into social. Like, my business has probably quadrupled over the last year because now I have this awesome reach on social. I have clients in more than 40 states now. Dude, it's been amazing.
33. It's like you're in a room and you're talking to 33 people right now, right? I mean, it's like you just threw a lunch in. You're in your office. I'm
in the comfort of my own home, and I'm buying lunch for everybody.
It's just very different. Going back really quick to why.
Rick, 100%.
But it's the Dave Ramsey thing and the education. So it's funny because the education, you're right. The sense that it's people have to be educated in order to understand. Assets are the name of the game. The dollar is debt. It literally doesn't come into existence unless someone types digits into a computer, and then the Fed, they swap IOUs with the Federal Reserve, and then currency springs into existence. So it's just printed. There's no value to it at all. It's just debt. So every currency unit that's printed, is there interest out on that? So it's literally debt. That's why getting into debt, those people win, and the savers are losers, as Robert Kiyosaki says. That's why Dave Ramsey is promoting losing long term. That was a smart thing to do for a long time when you actually had money, when you actually had gold, or you had, say it was Bitcoin or something like that, something that was actually finite and it was actually valuable. Well, now it's debt. The dollar is debt. It literally is a piece of paper, right? So that's the thing where people he hasn't switched for 50 years. He didn't, Dave didn't realize that Nixon took us off the gold standard 50 years ago. And it's very good advice to like get your financial house in order, to be disciplined in money, budget.
Get out of debt, budget, treat money as stewardship. Like, that's all good, but it's wealth building is...
Yes.
I don't want to say it's garbage. If you follow Dave Ramsey, you're going to be better than doing nothing.
Exactly.
It's just not optimal.
It's not optimal.
Like, so one of the things I say, like, and I'll twist this around so I can like talk to the camera here. Like, a couple of things, like with Dave Ramsey's advice, like pay off a mortgage early. Look, back in the 1980s when Dave Ramsey started that, Dude, mortgage rates were 12, 15%. Okay,
Right.
maybe that made sense.
And your 15% you could make with your cash sitting in your bank,
Yes,
which
exactly.
made sense.
Exactly. Yeah, because you could actually earn interest on your savings.
Exactly.
Another one of the things, like max out your 401k. You got to remember, back in the 80s, the top 3 tax brackets were 50%, 60%, 70%. We're at half of that today, and most Americans aren't even there. Like, I just did the tax brackets the other day. You could make over $200,000 this year, 2022, and be in the 18% federal tax bracket. So what do you really think you're going to do? You're going to take a tax deduction at 18%. And again, if you're making 200 grand, if you're saving and investing, you're probably going to have a pretty good nest egg. I mean, what are you hoping for? Take a tax deduction at 18%, and you're going to hope that you can take it out at 10%, which is the lowest bracket. But here's the thing with our country, 30 trillion in debt, $1 trillion deficits every year, Social Security broke, Medicare broke, pensions underfunded, cities and states even on the verge of bankruptcy. They've been printing money. That's how they've avoided raising taxes. But they can't do that anymore because inflation's at 9%.
Right.
They have one tool left in their toolbox, and it's to raise taxes. Biden just told you to your face he's raising taxes.
Yep.
They're lying about the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah,
there are many CPAs out there, the Joint Tax Committee, Tom Wheelwright, the lead advisor CPA for Rich Dad's Network. They're all saying like, hey, here's the data. This is going to impact people making $200,000 a year or less. And they're just lying, and all the sheep are just eating it up. Like, oh, it's only going to impact rich people making over 400 grand. I'm okay. Well, let me go put my head back in the sand like an ostrich.
Yes.
And it's all bullshit.
Yes.
And the average American, they listen to what's on the news. The leader of the IRS, would he ever lie to you? Because he says, we're not trying to hire more agents. Like, we're just, we're not coming after the middle class.
Don't
we're
read
just
the actual
underfunded.
bill.
We need new technology.
Don't read the actual bill and see what it says.
Yeah. So that's
listen to what I'm saying.
But again, going back to the 401k, because today we're at a historically low tax rate. When you look at the grand scheme of things, why am I going to take a tax deduction when taxes are historically low?
Yes.
Again, I'm hoping to save maybe 8%, but it could very well be that 30 years from now, the tax brackets maybe are 25 or 30%, especially if you accumulate a few $1 million in a pre-tax 401k.
Right.
To me, on almost all my money and most of my clients, I'm paying my income tax now while I can, right? And then I'm saving that money in vehicles where the government can never get their grubby little hands on it ever again. That's why I put so much money into cash value life insurance. Like, I'm tapped out of a Roth IRA. I can't contribute anymore. We make too much money.
Right.
When I used to work for an insurance company, I had a Roth 401k. I thought that was a great investment for long-term retirement. And maybe, my accountant's switching me to an S Corp. So we're going to explore hey, does that make sense to set it up just for me, like a solo 401k? I'd only do a Roth option, so we have to look at that. From the administrative fees, will that make sense? If so, I'll put money to a Roth 401k. But man, I'm putting money, I have much more money in my brokerage account than I'm going to put in a 401k. Because at least I can only pay capital gains tax on that.
Right.
Which is maybe 15%. But the other thing is, and this is why you got to be a master of the tax code, under current tax law, let's say that you're retired. You can take, as long as you keep your taxable income to 25 grand, which would be 401k distributions, you can take 55,000 of capital gains tax-free.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the thing. So, is 25,000 enough to live on? No. But that could be money coming out of your 401k. The rest of it being Roth IRAs, cash value life insurance, and then this brokerage account, 55,000 of capital gains a year at 0% taxes. You just got to keep your income low, but that's what people don't get. Roth IRA distributions, it's reportable, but it's not taxable. Cash value life insurance distribution, it's not even reportable on an income tax return. That doesn't count as income. It doesn't count to make your Social Security or Medicare taxable. So you got to understand the tax code. It's not just about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. There you go, baby. Yep. All right, let's turn it over to you. I've been babbling for a little while now. Let's go back to Brandon, talking about financial freedom. But part of that is freedom from overpaying taxes. There's nothing patriotic about overpaying taxes to a wasteful government.
And exactly, that's a great segue to 1773, Boston Tea Party, right? There was a tax revolt. We were largely a tax-free nation until 1913. The Federal Reserve came in, and ironically, that year, I know Mike Rath, where is Mike at?
Mike, are you on here?
Ironically, we just had an amendment get passed that we need the IRS, we need an income tax all of a sudden. Because that's what we were saying earlier, the dollar is debt, and that's how you pay for this. You have to get people to be taxed now to pay for this spending, which ironically though, in the 40s, they had the Federal Reserve chairman of New York, so one of the 12 chairmans of the Fed or whatever. He actually wrote an article, I've shared this multiple times on our blog, that he literally says in writing, we don't need to tax anyone. We can print currency. We do it to coerce people. Literally says it in writing.
This is what we do it to what?
We do it to coerce people. We use taxes to coerce people and show, and basically redistribute, socialism, basically, right? It's redistributing to where we see fit. So America is not patriotic to pay taxes, actually. That's why people came here, actually, in the first place.
Yeah.
For hundreds
That's why the Boston Tea Party.
Right. The Boston Tea Party, and then the Boston Tea Party.
Hold on, just real quick. You use the phrase ironically. You want to know what's ironic is that you just brought up Boston Tea Party. Literally this morning, I'm on the internet, and I bought some silver rounds, Boston Tea Party. It's engraved of the guy's throwing it over. So you want to talk about ironic? Like literally this morning, I bought silver rounds of Boston Tea Party.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then you bring it up to
that's hilarious, right? That's stuff that comes up every day, right? Like that. Unless you and I are talking.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that's the. If you don't understand history, Jim Rogers always says, to be a good investor, to be good with your money, which you've been talking about, being good with your money and being educated, you have to understand history and you have to understand philosophy. Or you could say probably psychology too. Understanding human philosophy and psychology and understanding history. And it's like if you don't understand those things, you just don't get it. Segueing into something we said earlier though, which is like you said, you educate yourself to acquire assets, and not my concern is really evolved in the last handful of years, and it's you blessed to achieve a level of wealth, and I know we've talked about this a lot, right, where you aren't worrying about the day-to-day, fortunately, right? And you can kind of do this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we're going up that hierarchy to self-actualization, the top of that pyramid, when you're not worrying about shelter and food and love or whatever, and you get to this point, which we're blessed to be in that realm, the upper echelon. And you start thinking about, okay, what is the majority of people doing? Which is where I think Dave Ramsey is brilliant at. He talks to the 90% of people.
He talks to the masses.
Exactly.
Yep. That advice is to the masses.
Exactly. Yep. He's not just talking to the top 10 or 20%, the Pareto's rule, right, of the top 20% of people. And what are we going to do? And that's people like you and I who we love studying these things. We love talking to people about it and helping people. But Dave talks to that bottom 80%. That's actually what I'm concerned about now in a way, and that's where coming full circle, this Bitcoin thing comes into play because of what we said 50 years ago. You could go save 15%, save $1 in your account, you got 15%, and you could retire. You could have $1 million at the end when you retire, and now you can make $150 a year in interest, and you're good to go.
Yep. And you can move it out of a risk asset.
Exactly.
And just live off.
And just sit there.
You can't do it anymore.
And now you can't do it, and that's where Bitcoin. Because I'm worried about. You look at these charts now. You look at we get geeky here, but like go to the FRED websites, the Federal Reserve Economic Data and all that. Right? You look at these charts of M2 and GDP and the velocity of money, all these things. And they're crashing. There's no velocity. The 1%, their deposits in their bank accounts are massive. 111x I just saw from 2008. 111x.
This is who?
This is the top 1%.
Top 1%.
Yes, the top 1%. They're up 111x since in the last 14 years. And you have it cratering basically for the bottom. The one I saw was about a 50%. So 1% to 50%. So my concern is, and I don't want to sound like, look at those people down there, but it really is, because it doesn't matter how much wealth you have at the end of the day. If the bottom 50% are revolting because you've destroyed the system so much they can't now even save their dollars. Because the bottom 50% own no assets. I think it's like 48% of people in the country don't own any asset. They just have dollars. You do their day to day, and
they live paycheck to paycheck, or are in debt, or are negative.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you, and we're not going to say that we're not talking to that person, unfortunately, because they're out working right now. They're out doing things and trying to live day to day. But because of the money printer or the currency printing and the money printer go burr, right? You don't have sound money, you don't have a Bitcoin, you don't have gold, something finite to actually keep the government in check. Well, now that disparity, the wealth gap continues growing. So my concern at the end of the day is actually, again, this is a very macro problem, which now you help people this day to day. I try to help people in the education realm, you help people in the education realm, but actually physically with their finances and stuff. But it's how do we narrow that gap, not bring these upper people down, but it's how do we bring these other people up? Well, it's a system that works for everybody. It's not the currency printing we have. It's not that Nancy Pelosi, we're going to read the bill after we pass it. We're going to reduce inflation this week, but we're going to spend $800 billion. That's not the system. The system is something that's actually tangible, it's actually finite, and it's actually, I can actually increase my wealth and get off the hamster wheel. And it just, not even like the investing in assets, 401ks, none of that. It's how do I just get by day to day? That's why, coming full circle, I love Bitcoin, because it levels the playing field, not equal outcomes, it's equal opportunities. That's a huge difference in what's going on. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. We talked about it earlier, but that's where I'm concerned about that bottom 50%, because it's, we have the access to information. Everyone has access. Like we said, if you can get Bitcoin, if you have an internet connection, you can get Bitcoin. But you can also get YouTube.
But how are you going to get Bitcoin? If you're not making any money, ultimately you have to transfer dollars into Bitcoin.
Exactly.
But that's where I want to kind of play devil's advocate. So
yes.
I'm going to turn this around here. So, when we talk about inflation, that means like, okay, so there are more dollars in circulation, but that also means that there is more money available. And look, I'm not trying to like look down on people. Here's the thing: 12 years ago, I was living in a one-bedroom apartment. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment throughout all my 20s.
Same. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
My parents both worked for General Motors. We were middle class, maybe upper middle class. My mom got promoted to superintendent at one point. We had a nice life, but I got a college degree in education, and I was a teacher through my 20s. And teachers back then, I don't know exactly what they make now. Back then, they make about 40 grand a year, right? And so it was one of those things. I was not really saving a little tiny bit, but I was pretty much living paycheck to paycheck, right? And it was one of those things where I decided to make a change.
Yeah.
Right? And not everybody's willing to do that. I got out of my comfort zone, right? I became a student of this game. I went to conferences, and you kind of if you look at my bookshelves and the things that I got there, these books, many of them not only have been read, but have been read multiple times, right? And I'm not trying to brag. Maybe I'm old school. I have physical books, but I put in the time and the work.
Proof of work, exactly.
I mean, literally highlighting, rereading, making notes, applying it, right?
Yes.
And I worked in the industry like mortgages, insurance, investments, retirement planning. I'm trying to learn real estate, so I'm going to ask you about some of that. So I've only got a few rental properties. I want and need to get better there. I don't want all my money in the stock market, all my money in insurance. I want to do the physical real estate, more of that as well. But that's the thing, is becoming a student of the game. Are you just sitting there and bitching on social media? Or are you actually going to conferences? Are you reading? I mean, you can get a college degree on YouTube if you're looking at the right stuff and not just fucking around.
Yes.
Right? To me, college, unless you're going into a field where you need a degree, to me, college is almost worthless at this point. It's so easy. I mean, if you find the right path for you, it's easy to make money. You can monetize your TikTok channel, your YouTube channel. Just the things that I see out there that people are making money doing, there's freaking kids out there playing video games on YouTube, and they got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Their YouTube channel's monetized. They're sitting there playing video games, and people are basically paying to watch them, basically, through the ad revenue.
Yes.
It's insane. So that's maybe the other side about the inflation, a little bit of easy money, but the people who are smart, driven, they're willing to put in the work, they're willing to sacrifice. You can go out there and get that and bring it into your family to increase your family. And again, I'm not talking about being wealth just to be wealthy, but just, again, security, opportunity, not having to look at the price tag on something before you buy it, not worrying about what gas prices are, shit like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I think if you have your head on straight, and if you're determined, if you're willing to put in the work and sacrifice, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And you hit the nail on the head. And I think one of the big things with our society, I just read The Capitalist Manifesto by Kiyosaki, his most recent book, and it was all about the education system and how it's postmodernism. Yes. It's opinions over facts. And that's what Marxism is. Marxism, communism is, how can we strip the human being down, strip them of their spirit, strip them of everything, so they can be their robots, their cogs, their numbers, so we can just herd them around like cattle.
Yes.
That's what the World Economic Forum wants.
100%.
That's what they want, right? So you
think a lot of these people that I'm talking about, they are just kind of stripped down. They're because of the education system, they're stripped of motivation or any inspiration or ambition.
We weren't built to be that way, right? I know, right? God's highest form of creation. We are not meant to be that. But so many of us have been brainwashed over the years. And you and I came up in that system too. And a lot of it didn't make sense. I fought with teachers growing up, and it was this doesn't make sense. When am I going to learn about money? When am I going to learn about taking care of my family or doing whatever? And we're not, it's what are we doing here then? So that was the difference. And you have, like you said, you got to want it, number one, but you have to realize. I just heard a quote earlier today, actually. I forget who said it, but the only way to get out of a prison is to, number one, realize that you're in prison. And I think that's the biggest problem so much of us have in society now, is we don't realize we're in our own mental prisons. whether it's, government and society brainwashing you, academia, or you're just mentally you're in your own negative prison, right? Like you said, it's still possible. It's still possible to go do these things, anything you want. But so many of us have just been beaten down to think like
a lot of those books I've got over there are about the power of positive thinking. Brian Tracy, Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, that kind of stuff.
Napoleon Hill. Napoleon,
you've got to change your mindset before you do any of this other stuff, and it's not easy.
So going back, I wrote a couple things down. Going back, like you said, that the 1% to 50% of society, the bottom 50%. Some things you can do, right? Decreasing expenses. How many of us have subscriptions we don't need, things like that, right? Selling that TV or two, flipping, going on eBay and buying, something, scrounging up $20 and buying something or going to garage sales, buying something for $1 and then going and flipping on eBay for $20, $50. And Gary Vee does that all the time. So Kiyosaki always say this back in the day, how can you create $200 extra for yourself every single month? And then using that to invest. So we talk about Bitcoin. You decrease your expenses, number one, so see what you can cut. What can you honestly cut? And then number two, how can you increase it also by $200 a month? $200.
Well, that's the key, because I'm of the opinion that cutting back, it doesn't work long term.
Right.
For most people, it's not sustainable. But I remember doing that, and I did that for a period in my life. And you have to be building good values, like you said. As you're decreasing, you also have to be working to build and increase. Because as Garrett Gunderson says, I love him on YouTube. It's his book. You cannot scrimp your way to wealth.
You can't.
So
you can't be Scrooge McDuck, right?
Correct. You can budget